Hello and welcome to the section Windows System Administration with PowerShell Core 6. In this section, we're going to be discussing configuring a Windows operating system, including features and services and more, managing a Windows operating system through WMI. We're going to be checking the monitoring and performance data, and we'll be using scheduled tasks with our PowerShell scripts to really give us powerful automation. Welcome to the video, Configuring a Windows System, Features, Services, and more. In this video, we're going to discuss Windows features, services, and I have a few extra tips and tricks using some recent and useful commandlets. I'm going to set my location to C drive and clear the host. Gives us a little bit more room. We've got plenty of room here in the terminal, and I want to start by talking about Windows features. Now, the command that we may be used to in previous versions of Windows PowerShell is get-Windows feature, or if you're talking about a desktop operating system instead of a server operating system, it's get-Windows optional feature. With PowerShell Core 6, I'll show you what we have for that, and that is a big nothing. If we get command Windows feature, they just aren't there yet. So this gives us a little opportunity to talk about where PowerShell Core 6.0 is right now. If you do remember, we have PowerShell Core 6 working off of the .NET Core instead of the full version of the .NET framework. So there's many options that are just not there yet. Now, I have a lot of faith that over the coming months and the coming release cycles, and as I talked about before, we get a new release PowerShell Core about every 6 months. As time goes by, we are going to see more and more objects be ported over and be made available to the .NET Core. What does this mean for us going forward? Well, for right now, what we have is a couple of options. The first option is, since you are still on a Windows system, you can still use the Windows PowerShell that came with it. I know that's not a great thing in a PowerShell 6 course to have the answer be to go back to PowerShell version 5.1, but let's see what that gets us. If we switch from PowerShell 6 back to Windows PowerShell, we'll let the integrated console fire up here and we'll try this command again. Here's all of our Windows feature commands. We can use get Windows feature, install them, uninstall them, and everything that we need to do with the Windows feature. The next option is always present for PowerShell, which is it can run built-in DOS commands. I'm going to switch back to PowerShell 6. The built-in DOS command is DISM. And we can see here the Deployment Image Service Manager. Boy, did I get that up. You can do DISM/online, or you can connect your DISM to a stored VHD of an operating system, whether it's attached to a VM currently or whether it is not powered on. That may present you some additional troubles, but you can still make that connection to your online operating system and enable your feature that way. Personally, I think it's probably best to just switch over and get the features that you want using the Windows PowerShell version 5. Now, if features is not the best story currently, we do get full feature support for services. So let's take a look at that. Clear my host again. Let's take a look at services. We can get a service, and this will give us the service object, which we can start, stop, and perform many different commands. In fact, we can do a get command where the noun is service. So we have everything that you could need to do with a service. You could start it, stop it. You can even pause it using the suspend, resume it from a pause using the resume, and you can restart a service, which would include both a stop and a start together. You can also delete a service completely, create a new service, and one of the things that I am most excited about with this current version is the ability to set a credential through the set. Many times what you're wanting to do with a service is either start it or stop it. Make sure that it's the way you want it to be. Let's take a look at set service, which can both set the current value of its status, that is, it can perform the stop or start for you, But we can also do something like set the display name. So instead of Docker just being called Docker, we can set the service and make sure that Docker service is given a display name of Docker container service. If we drop that what if off of there, we can run it, and that is done. Hey, I already ran that command. I'll run it in reverse. If we just Docker containers, now that will update that display name so that Docker container service is just called Docker containers. Notice when we set the service, it just goes into nothing. There is no return by default for setting a service. However, we can use the pass-through parameter, which is available many times in many different commands. And what the pass-through does is it will return the object instead of just appearing to do nothing. So set service, if this really did nothing, if there was a problem, it would give us some output. It would give us an error message or a warning. And since nothing happened, we do know that it was successful. However, many times you want to do something else with the service, either report the output to the screen or pass it on through the pipeline to the next commandlet. Let's take a look at what the Docker service could be done if we set the startup to manual and we set the status to stopped. Well, I've already got it stopped. Let's set it to running and set the startup type to automatic. Isn't that handy with the IntelliSense? Once I start typing one of the startup types, VS Code and the PowerShell extension knows what is available, and I can just select. Now if I run the set service, it will perform the operation and then it will return the service object. And now we've got Docker containers as the display name of the service. The status is running, and behind the scenes it's also set to a startup type of automatic. Finally, we can do a set service, and we can set the credential. And this actually sets the credential. Person that is running, or the identity that is running the service, is the credential that's provided here. I'm not going to perform this one. I'm going to let this go because I haven't prepared a credential to run this service. However, in many cases, if you're supporting developers or if you have an application which is being deployed, you may have services that are supporting that application, and those services most likely are running as an application pool identity or an application identity. This is a great way to bring that under the control of PowerShell. One more time, I'm going to go back and reset host, give me a little bit more room to work with. Over here on VS Code, as long as I'm doing this, I'll mention what I'm doing. We have a miniature thumbnail version of the script. You can see that the colors are there. This may be too small for you to see on your screen, but it's over on the right-hand side. This can be enabled or disabled in the settings, but I find it very useful for getting down into the section of the script that I know to know where I am. All right, so let's talk about some really useful commands, something that I think you're really going to appreciate. And the first one is TimeZone. Let's look at get command and what we can do with the time zone. We can get or set a time zone. Now, if we get the time zone, this will give us what time zone is currently set on our operating system, Pacific Standard Time. Now, we can also use the Get-TimeZone with a filter so that it will return what time zones are available on the system. Let's change this to Mountain. We have Mountain Standard Time for Arizona, Mountain Standard Time, which is the regular mountain time. Chihuahua, La Paz, Mazatlan, this is not where I am, so I'm actually in Colorado, so Mountain Standard Time is just perfect for me, and I'm going to set my time zone. Hey, get back here, script. We're going to set the time zone to Mountain Standard Time. And if I set this, see, there's, again, no return. I wonder if I can use the dash pass-through. There it is. Now we set the time zone to Mountain Standard Time, and our server has been updated to that time zone. Another command set that I think that you'll find useful is working with zip files. Let's take a look at get command with the noun of archive. Compress archive is creating a zip file, and expand archive is expanding a zip file or unzipping. To start with, I'm going to start by creating some temporary files. We will begin with for loop, and this for loop will start a counter at 0. We'll continue as long as the counter is less than 20, and each time through the counter is going to iterate and get 1 added to it. A for loop is perfect for doing things like this because I'm going to use the counter as part of the loop. So I'm going to create a log file 0, log file 1, and I'm going to create 2 files because I'm going to show you how to select just some files to create your zip. That sure was easy. Now I've got some fake log files. Now I can create a zip file, and the great thing about this is that all I have to do is just use the standard getChildItem. Let's take a look at what that will create for us just by doing the getChildItem. Only want the log files. The text files are not included here. I've used the include star.log and the exclude star.text. I actually don't need to use both of these, since if I just use the include log, it would include the log files. If I used the exclude text, it would exclude the text files. Both of them would return the exact same value. However, I use them both, it won't hurt anything, and it will demonstrate for you how I can use both of those parameters. Now the output of this getChildItem can be piped directly into Compress Archive. So I can create a zip file, highlight this entire line, and execute it. Hey, I've already run that command. I'm going to try that again. Now we've created a logs zip. If we browse to the ctemp directory, we will have logs. We'll get rid of this because that's what we're going to create next. All right. So here's our log file, and it includes all of our log files, only the log files. To expand, it's really easy. We just need a couple of cmdlet parameters. We need to tell it what zip we're expanding and where we're going to expand it to. And our log files are back. And even though it says that they're text documents, they are actually .logs. Another cmdlet that I think you'll really appreciate is Get-ComputerInfo. Get-ComputerInfo returns status and information about a wide range of computer properties. Everything from the operating system and memory details to details about the hardware and software. Computer info is just a collection of detailed information about your operating system. Now you can specify which properties you want to return, and in this case I'll use the Windows star so that I only get a subset of the properties, because without it, it would be a huge wall of text. All right, let's see here with Get-ComputerInfo and just the Windows properties. It takes a while. It's actually getting a lot of information from a lot of different sources, compiling it together and outputting it to the screen. So you'll really appreciate this. If you want to play around with it, I encourage you to do so. Get-ComputerInfo. You can use it on your current machine, and you can also use it against a remote machine. We will get into remote in the next section. Now, Get-Uptime is brand new for PowerShell Core 6. We can just run this and get a time span object that tells you how long the server has been since the server was last booted. And that's system configuration of a Windows operating system with PowerShell Core 6.